Mississippi Outdoors Radio on Super Talk Mississippi. It is time, my friends. Let's go outside for a bit. With us in studio, wildlife biologist Adam Butler, back in the saddle this week. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Dave. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you back. We missed you last week.
Yeah. Little man had a little bug last week.
Oh, yeah, that's not good. Wasn't the Rona, was it?
Was not.
Okay.
We at first got a little worried, but he ended up going to the doctor. It's just strep throat.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's not good still.
No, and he's had it several times, so the doc says one more time and the tonsils are out of there.
Yeah.
Which has got little man pretty worried.
But he gets ice cream. You just got to keep stressing the ice cream, Adam.
When you're 6, the doctor's just scary.
Yeah, it really is. To the point to where, here's a fun fact, here's a piece of trivia nobody cares about. I still have my tonsils.
I do too.
Oh, okay. What about you, Major?
Nope, they're gone.
Okay. Chris Reed is tonsilless.
There's 3 adults that I've talked to today that still have their tonsils.
Really?
I think that's 4.
Y'all 2 being 2 of the 3.
Rhino has his.
Oh, I'm the odd person out here.
You were the only tonsilless person in this entire production here today, Chris.
It's interesting.
Well, but that's where we are, right? So, what's going on in the world of outdoors right now? It's hot. I know that much.
Man, it is.
It's
Go
hot.
outside with a
Summertime.
personal fan.
It's getting to that. If you're a hunter, it's kind of that doldrum time of the year. It's hot.
Yeah, I saw
It seems a long time till fall.
Working on deer stands and hanging deer stands, or maybe cutting out some shooting lanes, or doing some stuff around their deer woods. And man, they must be hard pressed to get out. Man, it's just so hot and humid, and it is a good time to do that kind of stuff though, because you got plenty of time to let the scent kind of drift away and just kind of blend right back in.
It's a good time. There's some food plot stuff that you can really do this time of the summer. Like if you got some clover plots or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is. You want to try to keep those clipped a couple of times a summer, and usually around the 4th of July is a good time to get one in. So there's some stuff.
I just know I told my wife yesterday, we walked out in the yard for a few minutes and said, okay, we have officially reached the point of summer where I don't want to do anything outside. I'm done.
You don't want to go outside until right at dark.
Yeah, well, you open the door and you just walk into that wall of humidity, and it's over at that point.
It is definitely
just
here.
Don't care anymore.
One of the about only things to do now in a enjoyable type deal is boating, is to get out and to get on the waterways, and fortunately at the end of last week, Wolf Lake was reopened in Yazoo County. It had been closed for high water for months since.
I know we got a lot of calls and emails and web questions and stuff about that, so there's a lot of people anticipating getting back on Wolf Lake.
Yeah, and you get out there this time of year and you got to keep the boat motor running. That's the only air conditioner you got. Just keep it running, keep it moving. If you sit for too long, you just start baking. But it is back open, and that's good for those that utilize that body of water. And it's kind of that tight line, that tightrope you have to walk when you're managing these public waterways, and when the waters are getting extraordinarily high, and then you got people's personal property that are trying to be protected, and then managing the resource at the same time. So we're glad that got back open. Wolf Lake is back open for boating, and
just in time, because we got a holiday weekend coming up this weekend.
We do, and I know for Major Reed's guys, I mean, this is a big boating safety weekend. A lot of people probably may enjoy themselves a little too much when they're on the water. That can be a problem. So,
to quote Ron White, they wind up drunk in public. I'm just going to call it what it is, Major.
Not everybody's out there doing that. There are some that partake, and our officers are out there to ensure that the public has a safe place to go and utilize the waterways for their own personal pleasure with their families and stuff, and we want to keep it safe. And you can be cited for BUI, not DUI. It's boating under the influence, but it's the same level, .08. And
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, it's .08, and the officers will be out there working, and to go along with all the distancing requirements that are still in place. And so, just because time is kind of passing by, and we're around the 4th of July now, which is just crazy to say, that doesn't mean that we can be 12 boats tied up and big groups on the sandbars. Those things are still against the distancing orders and the guidelines that the governor has set forth. And so we'll be out making sure that's being adhered to as well.
Now, is there an end date on that, or is that just until it's canceled, those restrictions?
Yeah, I went back and looked through some of the executive orders recently, and I very well could have missed or overlooked an end date. But I know that, as my opinion, I guess something will come out and rescind that stuff. But I know they extended something through the 6th of July, through the holiday weekend. So we'll just go and make sure everybody's trying to be distant and safe.
Right. And that's something to keep in mind, too, because, when the social distancing things first came out with the COVID, there were issues. There were issues up and down the Pearl River and parts of the reservoir and stuff like that.
Yeah, there were some issues on sandbars. And, folks, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and whether it is a real threat or not is not part of the argument. The discussion or the statement is you can't be congregating like that. There's no debate about that. And so we'll be out there making sure that's going on and making sure everybody's having a safe, enjoyable weekend, because we want everybody to utilize the outdoors and then in the public waterways and have a good time, and but also come back and safely return to wherever they have come from. And so it's one thing we stress when we're out there is the safety requirements, and making sure everybody has a memorable weekend of good memories.
Well, and to me, it kind of equates with the speed limit. There are some people that would love to drive 90 down I-55 wherever they're going, and some people do, but then I keep seeing them getting pulled over and getting tickets, because it doesn't matter if you agree with it or not. That's the rule.
That's it. And, we've always told the public when we're out working or whatever, we don't write the regulations. We don't come up with them. We're just tasked with enforcing what is set forth by the legislature and the governor, and we take pride in doing that.
Exactly. Now, Adam, something interesting. Explain first off, before we even go down this road, what is a private land program biologist?
Yeah, so a lot of our biologists, or a good segment of our biologist staff, a big chunk of what they do is meet with private landowners. Mississippi is about 86-ish% private land, so the conservation of wildlife and our natural resources is then obviously dependent upon the actions of private landowners. So we have a whole staff of folks that are there to be a resource to landowners to help manage habitat and manage for the wildlife species of interest. And even though it's hot now, and this is a good time of the year to have those folks out, so just encourage that. Most of those guys are very knowledgeable about managing habitat, managing timber, managing farmland, whatever it may be, and they can offer you a lot of sound advice based on science to improve, hopefully improve your hunting for next fall. So usually a lot of those type visits, we're real busy and booked up with those kind of in the weeks or months before hunting season,
because everybody waits till the last.
That's when everybody thinks about it. But like Major was talking about earlier, I mean, this is a good time of the year, kind of a downtime in the outdoors to get a lot of projects lined up and done. And so I would encourage folks to check that out. Our agency website has a page just for that, where you can go in and request a visit from one of those guys or gals to come out and look at your property with you and give you some management tips. So that's a good time to do that in the summertime.
Yeah, it makes sense, because you're not doing much, they're not doing much, and you can get a little jump on it, because sometimes they can give you advice of things that you can set up now and change now that would have a positive effect this fall.
That's right.
If you wait till October, it's too late.
Right. And for a lot of things, I mean, the summertime's a good time to sort of review habitat anyway. If you're into deer, this is when deer browses out there, and when you can kind of look at it and get a sense of where you're at. So it's a good time to sort of set some of that up.
When we come back on Mississippi Outdoors Radio, as always, open for your questions on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Text them in, Adam, Chris. They will be glad to give you an answer or tell you where to get an answer if you want to do something with the Department of Marine Resources, because these ain't them. Seems like every week that comes up. Every week.
Correct.
Yeah,
that is it.
Yeah, just
We'll
put
get
those
you in the right spot.
We'll give you the phone number if we have to, and you can move on. It's Mississippi Outdoors Radio, and we continue next. Welcome back, Mississippi Outdoors Radio, here on Super Talk Mississippi. Adam Butler, Major Chris Reed in studio with us today. But before we get to the survey, the hunter survey, I want to talk about that. But before we get there, let's deal with this. Because we were talking about boating and the fact that we have a holiday weekend coming up this weekend. Marty from Tupelo texted in and said, hey, can you advise if there's a limit to how many people in a boat? I know at one time they were limiting the persons in a boat to 1 or 2. Major?
Right.
It's all yours.
That has been an ongoing question for the last few months, and that order, to my knowledge, is still in effect. The actual language says 50% of the capacity of the vessel. And so if you have a pontoon boat that's rated for 10 persons, that would be cut in half. So you could have 5 on it. If you have a vessel that is rated for, 4 people or 5, you would have to go with the lower number. And so if it was 5 and you can't have 2.5 people on the boat, you would go with the lower number. You wouldn't go up. You wouldn't go to 3. And so it's half the capacity, and those capacity plates are found in the boat, usually around the steering column or the throttle or on the back of a smaller boat. There also was a time back in April or May at the Corps of Engineer Lakes in North Mississippi. And up around Tupelo, he may be speaking, or the person may be speaking about the Tennessee Tom Bigby Waterway, which is also controlled by the Corps. So the Corps of Engineers had a more restrictive regulation where they limited it to 2 per person, period. That was it. 2 people in your boat. And we had people calling in, well, I got 2 kids, and, you just got to pick whichever one, take one day and take the other kid the next day, or whichever kid's your favorite. Just reinstill that favoritism deeper. So I don't.
We see what kind of father Chris is.
Yeah. This is very telling. Please continue, Major, because we're learning a lot here today, I think.
Well, there's always multiple ways to deal with stuff, and sometimes it's tough. Sometimes the roads it's a tough pill to swallow, and some kids just got to realize real quick that they are not the favorite. So.
I would like to point out that Major Chris Reed is in no way a licensed practitioner of mental health.
Yeah. Far from it.
Just putting a disclaimer out there for you before we start getting the calls, because
there's so much stuff out there about reopening and the guidelines and whatever. So if you're going to one of those Corps lakes, check with the Corps of Engineers to make sure there's nothing more restrictive than what the statewide order is.
Now we've got something, and it doesn't really tie into it, but it does. But Adam, got a question for you, which can kind of lead us into the post-hunting survey. Mm-hmm. Down in Biloxi, question for you specifically. Why has the deer data not been updated for WMAs throughout the state? John Star WMA has not been updated since 2017, they say.
I don't know exactly what he would be talking about. So I assume he's talking about the DMAP data that we collect from wildlife management areas. So the WMAs are treated as a part of DMAP, which is Deer Management Assistance Program, which is bigger than just WMA. So we have a lot of private hunting clubs that participate in that, and we collect data on deer and deer harvest and that sort of thing in the same way. It's also collected on wildlife management areas. I can't speak to without looking at it. I assume he must mean on the website. Generally, what the biologists for those areas do is to post a report every year, and then that's attached to the website, the specific page within the website for that WMA. And then that data is also available. We put out the annual deer report, and it'll have that data in there for WMAs and for private lands and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know that I can comment really without going to the website specifically. I guess more generally, this year, normally we don't put that stuff, get it all in, analyze, look at it, because the deer data from those WMAs, again, is just a piece of DMAP, and it takes a while to get all of that data entered into the system and analyzed and all that. So the WMAs are getting analyzed as a part of the bigger DMAP program.
Not necessarily broken down to that level.
Well, it is, but what I'm saying is the don't think of it as, hey, why didn't that guy analyze the data for John Starr? It's part of the whole program. And so, it's normally kind of midsummer before a lot of that stuff gets out there anyway. So I can't speak to specifically John Starr on that issue, but I mean, it's normally, midsummer-ish before we get all the DMAP data from the previous year has been entered into the system and analyzed and published and all of that. So it's a process.
Well, talking about data collection, you were mentioning earlier that, this is a lull time for hunters in the middle of the South, because anything alive ain't moving much right now anyway. Everybody has found a shady place to sit next to some water, and that's what they're doing for the rest of the time, which means it's time to get a survey on the season that just ended.
Yeah, and this year we've had a lot of questions. And this year's survey, I guess, touched a nerve because of a few of the questions. But what a lot of listeners may not be aware of is one of the ways that we have always had to sort of estimate what harvest of different animals might be, deer, turkeys, squirrels, whatever. We're well aware that with turkey now we have Game Check, which is a direct deal where if you harvest a turkey, you got to report it. And so we're getting a direct reporting that way, but prior to that, and going all the way back to the late 1970s, the way we have came up with how many deer got harvested in Mississippi, how many turkeys got harvested in Mississippi, is a postseason survey where we take a license database. So in a given year, that's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of I think 300,000 people or so bought a license, some form of a license, and then from that we take a random sample. And usually that random sample is going to constitute a couple of thousand people. And then those people get contacted, and we ask you, hey, Dave, did you go hunting this year? Hey, Dave, did you go deer hunting? How many days did you deer hunt? How many deer did you get? Did you go turkey hunting? And so on and so forth through all the major game species. In the past, that used to be done by mail. So we used to send you a letter in the mail, and you fill that out, and you return it back to us. Well, as technology has gotten better, things have changed. So now that's done by phone, and so a randomly pulled subsample of license holders gets pulled, and they get contacted by phone. And that those phone interviews were conducted over the last several weeks, early part of the month, and so we've gotten a lot of calls and emails and stuff at the agency. Hey, what's going on with that? Somebody called me wanting to know, all of this information, and that's what that's all about. So just wanted to put that out there as a little bit of a public service announcement. What was going on with that? Why someone would have contacted you to ask those questions, and how that information is used.
So it's legitimate if they get.
It's
that
legitimate, call. And one of the criticisms would be, hey, if you're not asking everybody, so how do you know the answer or the estimate you're getting is correct? Well, it's sort of like when you see somebody on the news say, hey, 15 million people watch the Super Bowl. The people that do those surveys didn't interview 15 million people. They interviewed a subset of people and then extrapolated out to
y'all
all
scientists
people.
Have some type of formula, don't you?
Something,
So they've been doing this test for a few years, right?
Right. So this particular survey goes all the way back.
Or this survey.
Yeah, the particular survey goes all the way back to the 1979.
So it has nothing to do with deer harvest reporting or any of that stuff.
No, it's not. It's simply trying to gather some information.
I think the only way that it would even come close to edging towards being a scam is if you answer the phone and they say, this is Adam Butler from the Wildlife Bureau. Did you go turkey hunting this year? How many did you take? Where was that?
Yeah.
Then at that point there could be some
questions.
questions.
Please enter your GPS coordinates followed by the pound sign.
No.
Yeah. Then it might be something.
But yeah, but again, this is something that's been done for a long, long time, and for whatever reason, it seems to have struck a little bit of a nerve this year because we've gotten quite a few calls and comments about it this year. But that's what's going on with that.
The research department over there in the booth, Rhino, says that the last deer program report on the website is for 2017-2018.
Okay, I will go back and find out what's going on with that.
Yeah, something hasn't, a button hadn't been pushed somewhere, or you let Major Reed be in charge of doing the programming or something.
That was that one year I think they put me in charge of MI or IT.
Yep. Oh, see.
Yeah, it's maybe.
Yeah, they could have called and asked me. I could have given you a recommendation to get out of that, man. I like you, but not for that.
No, I never was in charge of that.
Yeah, no. It's a joke. We're just joking around here. Got several questions. When we come back, a couple of people have asked, has there been any cougar sightings?
It's a good question. We'll wait till after the break to answer it.
After the break, stick around. Up next, the Gateway Getaway, and Major Reed talks about his encounters with cougars. Welcome back, Mississippi Outdoor Radio, and it is time for your Gateway Getaway on this Monday morning. And this is a good one. George P. Custer State Park, a sportsman's paradise with hunting opportunities at Holly Springs Natural Forest right next door. Fishing in the Corps of Engineers Enid Lake, 16,000-acre lake. There's some fish in there, by the way. Go get them. Not only does this park offer excellent fishing and hunting, it also has miniature golf, picnicking, hiking, a playground, water skiing, disc golf, and camping. And one of the 15 cabins are the 76 RV campsites. Custer State Park is one of several parks offering the MDWFP Hunter Special Lodging at a discounted rate. I like that, Adam. We're going to find out more about that in a second. If you can find out more, you can find out more also at the website at mdwfp.com. You can make a reservation by visiting the website at mdwfp.com or call 1-800-467-2757. Or you can call the park itself at 662-623-7356. And don't forget, you can get an annual park permit for $50. Gives you access to every single one of the Gateway Getaway parks, all of them. Every last one for a solid year. This year's Gateway Getaway, George P. Custer State Park. Now, what is this Hunter Special Lodging, Adam?
That's one of the parks during the hunting season that offers special rate, to hunters.
Very good.
So, located around, where there's some public hunting land.
Well, and actually, Custer is one of those that it does offer some hunting opportunity. There's a couple of our how many? 2, 3 parks that you can hunt on as well. So it during the hunting season offers that opportunity. So you can
strictly
get a special
regulated
rate, stay there at a cabin, and maybe do a deer hunt while you're there.
It's a cool little idea because a lot of those parks are in really, really pretty spot, like rustic, like a hunting camp type feel when you go in there, and they're primitive. It's not like you're going, because some people's options are just like staying at a hotel and blah blah blah. So it was a pretty good type.
You want to be somewhere with a campfire if you're going to be
with
out
a fireplace and cooking outside, and you just as quiet as you can imagine, and it's like deer camp.
Well, it kind of takes something away from it if you get through hunting and you get out of the stand and you go over to the Hilton.
Yeah,
just doesn't have the same feel to it.
Yeah, it's just that just doesn't go together.
Yeah, no. It just doesn't work. Now, before the break, we teased it. People are asking about cougars. Any cougar sightings?
I haven't heard of any.
Well,
Butler.
Here we go. I can tell by Adam's face this is going to be good.
Well, there is. So that's one of those that it's an ever-present legend. Myth? I don't know.
Yeah.
We've as an agency have not officially documented any wild cougars in the state in I don't know when the date would be, but quite some time. Suffice to say, the last century. Okay.
Right.
Historically, they would have occurred here, though. You would have had cougars living in Mississippi and back in the day. But interestingly, cougar populations, across the U.S. are expanding. So Florida Panthers, which are a particular subspecies down in South Florida, their numbers are growing, and you're actually starting to see some of those individuals starting to disperse out, coming north up the peninsula of Florida, which is not that far when you look at a map. And then some of the western populations are expanding eastward. So even though Mississippi, we have not had a bona fide sighting of a cougar where we can document for sure a track, for sure a picture or hair or whatever. A lot of our not too different states have. So
Yeah.
I think there's been
Louisiana.
a couple. Yeah, Louisiana had one. I think
We're not ruling it
Arkansas.
out by any stretch. I mean, because those, some of the young males, we've talked about it before, and some of your peers have, stated those young males, when they're out searching, can travel hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
In,
And
a matter of
there was the
months.
case. It's probably been 3 years ago now, where a cougar was ran over, roadkill in Connecticut, I believe it was, one of the New England states, and they were able to do some genetic analysis on it and confirmed 100% that cougar came from the Black Hills of South Dakota. So that gives you an idea
Wow.
of just how far those young males can disperse.
That's a trip.
Yeah. So it's not impossible, but again,
Right.
it's not.
We're not overrun with them. We're not going to, it's going to be
Right.
like if there is one that comes through, it'll be a random flyer going on to somewhere else, and
But again, like 20 years ago, that was probably not much chance at all.
Right.
But a lot of those western populations,
Mhm.
like I said, especially the South Dakota population and some of those, West Texas, Southern Rockies, they're expanding. So it's not totally out of the question.
Well, you need to talk to Grady on the C Spire text line. He says, has there been any cougar sightings here in Mississippi? I called up one with my digital call, just wondering about this.
Could be. We're always willing to take a picture. If he's got a picture, we'll check it out.
look at it.
Yeah. Let's see. Sheila from Hattiesburg said, come to Marion County. You'll see one. That goes right along with Johnny in West Point, who texted in and said, and I quote, just going to read it, I have a cougar living with me at my house.
Not going to touch that one.
And we'll move along. That was good. Now we're just moving right along, guys. Thank you so much. Text line's always wonderful. They really are. Let's see. Adam, this is a big, fat, slow one right over the plate for you, my friend. If you don't knock
right.
this one out of the park, I don't know what else to do. We can just shut it down and go home. What do you think the correlation is between the turkey population being down with the increase of predators eating deer feed corn year-round?
Well, that when you hear biologists,
You gave him.
Right over the plate.
He just started sweating.
when a lot of times you'll hear from biologists that feeding and feeders can have negative impacts to wildlife, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of times professional biologists are not just beside themselves to encourage feeding, and that's potentially one of the downsides. There's good scientific evidence that predation can be increased around feeders. So I don't know that the feeders and the feed themselves is necessarily causing there to be more predators, let's say. But obviously, if you're a hawk, for instance, and you know that there's probably going to be rabbits and mice and other things coming to eat the deer corn, you probably are going to sit over that feeder waiting for that to happen. And if a mama turkey with 8 little turkeys comes by, you've got an easy meal right there. And so that's one thing. There's been some good research that shows that turkey hens that nest within a few hundred yards of a feeder have a much lower chance of being successful for that very reason, that there's raccoons and all kind of other stuff coming to the feeder, and so the odds of them being in proximity to a predator are going to be a lot greater if they're close to a feeder. So it definitely they can be a negative from the turkey perspective.
See, I knew he was the guy to ask. That was the perfect text.
Oh, he's got it, man.
Yeah,
Good
nothing
dude.
to it. Nothing
He's
to
the
it.
top turkey biologist in the U.S., I think.
I don't know about that.
From the 601, what about that Copiah County bear?
What about it?
Have not heard. I don't know. I
They're
don't know
there.
what
I mean,
they're specifically talking about. But
Right, I mean,
certainly that part, the west part of Copiah County, no doubt.
Right.
The bears are sort of expanding eastward from the river, so
And they're
getting more and more sightings that are there.
They're definitely increasing in number, and we just, I guess,
I don't know what the
need to know a little bit.
I don't know
more
what the listener may be
specifics about.
specifically talking
Yeah,
about.
that's literally all it says from the 601. Says, what about that Copiah County bear? Almost as if they were talking about a specific one.
Right? Yeah,
Maybe there was an incident. I don't know. I haven't heard.
I
Maybe
have
so.
not either over the Corona break. Maybe they're talking about Med,
I don't know.
who
Yeah, maybe
manages.
not.
Maybe that's his nickname that manages the Copiah County WMA.
You're going to get a call after the show. You realize that now, right?
From Matt?
Yeah.
His birthday was last week or something, I think. I believe so. Maybe I'm way off base. I want to say I heard that. If it's going to happen this year, so happy birthday, Matt. Covering all our angles.
From the 662, somebody said, and I'm just going to read it as it's written here, guys, said, you need to tell these idiots to stop using chicken litter where turkey are.
That's another common question with folks. And so the idea is, people growing hay and using chicken litter as a cheap source of fertilizer, which makes a lot of sense. And there's concern that passes diseases on to wild turkeys, and it's not. Don't totally rule that out. So if you're really concerned about turkeys, that may be something you want to stay away from in your pastures and that sort of thing.
You have to be selective, and sometimes, a lot of times, let's be honest, the easiest solution is not necessarily the best one.
Right.
We see that over and over. That's just the way it works. So sometimes you just got to kind of back up and do it the right way instead of the easy way. And that's a great example of it. One more segment to go. We will continue here on Mississippi Outdoors Radio on Super Talk Mississippi next. Mississippi Outdoors Radio on Super Talk Mississippi. Major Chris Reed, Adam Butler in the studio with us. One thing we're talking about hunting being slow and getting ready for hunting season, and hunting season is coming up. It's pretty well dead in the water right now, but it's coming up again before you know it, which means everybody wants to know, when does hunting season actually start?
So, yeah, we've been getting some of those questions. The Outdoor Digest, I'm actually looking at a rough copy of it here. It should be up on the website here pretty shortly. If you the season dates and everything are on there, you just the 2020 and 2021 Digest is not up quite yet. Should be soon, but you can go to the rules section and it'll have all of that stuff listed out. But generally, there's not any major changes this year. Dove season is September 5th, I believe, which is the first Saturday in September. Sometimes that one can be a little different because in the past, it's fallen on a Sunday and we have to do different things, or sometimes we've opened it on a Saturday, sometimes on the Labor Day, but it'll be September the 5th, the first Saturday this year. And then, most all the other major seasons are going to be pretty similar to what they have been in the past. You can probably look at what they were last year and just
figure out the weekends.
Yeah, correct for the calendar date, but it'll fall on the Saturday.
Wiggle it a day or two in one direction or the other to make it.
But I know folks are looking ahead to that, and like I said, the digest should be up pretty quick here.
Well, and that's one of the things. This is the time of year where everybody's going to go out this weekend. They're going to have a good time out on the water somewhere. That's what you do during 4th of July weekend. But in the back of their mind.
Oh, yeah, after the weekend, they park the boats. It's starting to get ready for hunting season.
Yeah. It's time to get geared up.
Maybe catch a few fish, maybe.
I think that's right. It's like a certain point in the summer where, the fishing's finally slowed down. It's just too hot, and summer holidays have come by and come and gone.
Most years it's, families they got July 4th is over, school starts 1st of August, so the time window is closing rapidly to get back in that schedule.
We're getting to that point of the summer where your thoughts are starting to look ahead. Like let's
cooler days,
let's just
shorter
get through
days,
this unbearable part of
changing. Come on.
Yeah. Well, this is the time to go check out your guns and your bows and start working on that and kind of get you in that mood. Kind of get you moving in that direction.
Go check out one of the shooting ranges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're all back open, aren't they?
They are.
Correctamundo.
They are. Go try to get geared up for that dove opener.
I would assume there is a continuous line waiting for a spot at Turcotte because we got so many questions about that while it was closed.
I don't. It's not like a horror story. They're doing a pretty good job of rolling people in and out and keeping them spaced out and keeping it kind of managed. And so.
And if you've never shot the clay course there, it's pretty cool.
It will serve you the humble pie if you think you're pretty up and up on your wing shooting abilities. The course is not just a cupcake walk. It's tough.
The little rabbit one always gets me. The one that I don't spins on the ground.
I've never hit it ever. That's why I don't go rabbit hunting. If I can't hit the clay, Why go hunting?
You're
Why
sure
go
not
try-
gonna
One of them
forever.
does like an odd jump at the end, like you're on it,
Yeah.
and then it just
You can
jumps
do-
up.
Yeah,
Kinda,
it's so
yeah.
for those people that can roll through that thing and shoot a perfect score, or shoot really close to a perfect score, they're good. They're really good at handling that, and it's a really good idea before the little doves start flying in September.
You don't
want
to wait till like the weekend before dove season. You better
If you got
go
old
ahead,
spring
go
that
there
was
now.
rusted last year and your duck gun, order it now, get it in, change it out. I'm talking to myself. So when you go hunting in November, you're like, oh, well, it's a cold morning. I got a single shot.
Well, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the land management.
Right.
You know,
This is the
don't
time of
wait
the
till
year.
the last second.
That's right.
to
Start
do that.
implementing some of that stuff now and seeing some of the success from it this fall.
You get the returns in just a few months instead of next year, which is what it's going to be if you wait until, end of August. Well, it's too late.
Yeah, because once we get to that time of the year, everything starts happening so fast, and it's hard to keep up. And then, before you know it, we're talking about the end of the rut and stuff.
Yeah, well, a lot of stuff makes it onto the as soon as I get time, I'm going to, and then you never get time at that point. Now you got time, so you can take care of it.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's what you got to shoot for, so to speak.
So this week on Mississippi Outdoors TV, Dave, we're going to have a dove hunt at Deviney Wildlife Management Area up there in the Delta. Which, if you're looking for a public land dove option, that one is usually outstanding. So we're going to have that on the TV, and then some red fishing down on the Gulf Coast. So two things to sort of tide you over while we're in this summer doldrum period. Mississippi Outdoors airs Thursday evenings on Mississippi Public Broadcasting at 7:30, and then again Saturdays at 5:30. And if you miss it, you can always go to YouTube and all of that.
At this point, can I just put in a vote for Mississippi Outdoors TV to follow Major Reed to the clay range?
That'd be...
Whatever that music is that
We'd have
they
to put
find
that under
for
the heading of
bloopers
comedy.
videos would be
That'd be a comedy episode.
Yeah. Well, you need to lighten it up every so often. Guys, enjoyed it as always, and we'll see you again next week for Mississippi Outdoors Radio here on Super Talk Mississippi.